I want to share with you the story of how my wife and I purchased our house in 2021 with no money down, no money for closing costs. But for me to tell this story, I got to start from the very beginning. In 2012, I had just gotten divorced. I was basically starting my life over. Here I was staying with my mom at the time, and I began to pray and ask God, what do I do at this point in my life? Surprisingly, his answer was, wait 6 months and I'll tell you what to do. 6 months is a long time. And of course, this was a major transition. But what other option did I have? I had decided as a very young child, I was going to follow God. So at this particular time, I decided I'm not making any moves until God speaks. 6 months go by and he began to speak to me September 1st. But the conversation he had wasn't the one I expected. He really began to talk to me about remarrying. And of course, at that time, I was not in that frame of mind to have this conversation. My prayer was, where am I going to live? I had joint custody. We had the 2 children, Simone and Trevor. We're staying with my mom, but of course, we need a place of our own. So of course, when God says, I'll speak to you in 6 months, the assumption is our conversation is going to be about the living situation. But as usual, God talks about what he wants to talk about. Begins the conversation off with, I want you to remarry. And of course, I was not in that frame of mind. Here it is 6 months after the divorce. I have no interest in remarrying. My thoughts was, I'll remarry once the kids turn 18. I'll focus on the children right now. I knew there was a ministry, the call to ministry was there. At that point, I was not pastoring. But remarrying was the farthest thing from my mind. So we talked about it. I told God no, and he told me this is what he wanted. And we went back and forth. And I remember he said to me, will you trust me? What am I going to tell God no? I had trusted him up until that point. I had seen God do crazy things in my life. I mean, absolutely crazy. And we had already made a deal. We're in covenant with each other. He told me that if I walked with him, that he'll completely blow my mind. And so whenever God said, let's move, then I was good to move. The problem was my emotional state at this stage. And so God begins to give me a detailed description of the woman that he wanted me to marry. And of course, to be honest, at the time when I heard the description, I was like, I don't want this. He told me she'll be 10 years younger. He told me that her father wasn't in the picture, but that she loved God. He told me that she was black. And of course, at the time in my anger, I don't know if I was done with black women. And then he told me that she was called to ministry. She had already accepted the call, so she understood ministry. He said she had a whole lot of hair, and also she was a very big deal. He asked me again, will you trust me? Will you trust if I pick her out for you? I still wrestled with the concept of what the Lord was explaining to me, but I've learned not to tell God no. I just knew I had to adjust myself to his plan. He did tell me that it was important that I remarry, especially for my children's sake. So understanding that, I told him yes. But the conversation I wanted to have was about the living situation. As usual, if you follow the story of Elijah, God gets to your request, your needs, the things that's important to you last. It's funny, Elijah was crying and he says, I'm the only one that serves you. And that's the last conversation that God had with him. First, he said, these are the things I need you to do. So at this point, he gives me an order of things. He says, go get a new phone, go get a new car, and then get the apartment. And I had to do it in that order. And of course, it didn't make any sense. I had been stacking my money. And here I'm going to drop all this money on the phone, on a new car. He also told me to get brand new glasses. So you're talking about close to thousands of dollars. In my head, in my logic, if I was going to get an apartment, I needed first and last security. I needed furniture. We didn't have any beds. We didn't have anything. But I knew God well enough to trust his plan. So I went out, got the new glasses, got the new phone, went to the car dealership. Credit was so crazy, I ended up with 18% interest rate on my car. So that basically took all the money that I had saved. And I'm like, Lord, what do I do at this point? Because we still don't have a place to live. So now he gives me the answer. This is the end of September 2012. He said, call your cousin, Mary Browning. She had a 2-family house. She lived on the first floor, but I knew the second floor was occupied. I'm like, Lord, that doesn't make sense. She has a tenant in the house, and the tenant's been there for years. He said, call your cousin. Ran it by my mother. This is what I'm hearing from God. She said, that's interesting. That was the same thought, and I was going to go talk to Mary to see what the situation was with her apartment. So the next service that we had at church, I called my cousin Mary. We call her Sister Mary. And I told her what God had told me. And of course, she knew God's voice too. So she said, I'll keep it in mind. I do have a tenant right now. So that was the plan. My plan was at some point, I'm moving into Mary's house. I ended up putting about $4,000 down on my car so that I could get a car note that I can afford. I have an idea of where we're going to live, but I still need furniture. So I'm still trying to reason everything out in my head. I had saved about $6,000, and at this point, I probably had only $1,000 left. I'm like, Lord, how does this plan make sense? Well, anyway, Mary hits me up about 3 weeks after our conversation, and she tells me that if you're still interested, the tenant just left. I was interested. I checked the date. It was my birthday. Me and God have this thing where on my birthdays, he gives me birthday gifts. We've done this for many years. I usually ask ahead of time. I remember one year I didn't ask, and then he said to me, you never asked me for a gift. So here it is, September 26, 2012. On my birthday, I got the keys to my apartment. I was going to do some minor cleaning in the house, changing the carpet, etc. So I wasn't able to move in immediately. And because we're related, she didn't even ask for a credit check. I just had to take care of the deposit. We didn't do security or anything like that. So it was an easy transition for me, especially because of my current situation. Of course, once again, no furniture. But my thought was, we'll just go into the house. I'll get like a blow-up mattress. Me and the kids will have a place to rest our head. And then we'll figure out the furniture situation later. And of course, that was not God's plan. So here it is, October 1st. Why is that date important? I bought my first house in September and moved in October 1st. God has always done stuff like this in my life where he lines the dates up, lines the numbers up. And so here it is, October 1st, we're moving into the house. And this is when things got crazy. I began packing up all of our stuff to move out of my mom's house. My sister calls me up. Hey, I'm getting a new bed for AJ, my nephew. You're interested in the bed? Of course. So now I got a queen size bed and mattress. At least we're not sleeping on the floor. That was my thought. Reached out to my Uncle Kenny and asked him if he would be able to help me pick the mattress up, get the bed frame. And he says, of course. So, but he had mentioned he had a bunk bed set that he had when my little cousins were little. Wasn't using it anymore. So I asked him, would I be able to get the bunk bed set? And he said, of course. So now I got the bunk beds. And of course, that set had the drawers underneath. So that took care of the children's clothes. But before we went to go pick the bed up, my mom hits me up. She says, hey, meet me over at Railroad Salvage. So I met with her and we picked out a kitchen set. She got me a recliner and I thought we were getting a futon. I guess I had messed that up. What we ended up purchasing was the futon mattress. So I didn't even realize I didn't have the frame included. So fast forward a few days, I meet with my uncle. We drive out to pick up the bed set. And I mentioned to him how now the furniture's coming in for the apartment. These are things I thought I was going to have to pay for. When I mentioned that I had the futon mattress, he said to me, hey, I got a futon frame in the basement. He said, I was thinking the other day I was going to get rid of it, but wasn't sure. It's still good. So he decided he would just hold on to it. Maybe at some point somebody might need it. And it was me. So now my apartment is slowly being furnished. My mom had bought a brand new set of pots and pans. So she says, hey, do you want the old ones since I got to get rid of them? So now I got pots, I got pans. Get back to the apartment. Sister Mary says to me, I got something for you. Hands me a box, open it up, silverware. She also gave me paper towel. She gave me napkins, toilet tissue. It's amazing at certain points of your life where something as small as toilet tissue means the world. So I'm watching everything fall into place. I'm giving some towels and washcloths. Like literally, God was putting everything together. And what's the other thing, detail I thought was interesting, was everything matched. God is really into details. Then I had a friend hit me up, because here's the problem. I'm still thinking I got to take care of things. I'm running to the store. I need this. I need that. And each time God was like, I'm taking care of this. This part of the story is critical because it's going to make more sense as we get to how we purchased our home. A friend of mine hit me up. She was like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm looking at microwaves. She said, oh, I got one. Got one in the closet. Come by and pick it up. When I say God took care of moving me into the apartment, in 1 week, my entire apartment was completely furnished. My bedroom, the kids' bedroom, our TV room, we had end tables, coffee table, area rugs. God literally took care of everything. And I had never witnessed God move that fast ever in my life. I was completely blown away. I remember the first night we moved into the apartment, God spoke to me at that point. And he said to me, don't get comfortable here. This is not your life. He also said to me, you'll be here 2 to 3 years. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to be moving in about 2 to 3 years. That's how God used to speak to my parents. And he spoke to me like that before. When I signed my music deal, he said, you'll be here 1 to 2 years. At some point after the first year and before the second year, things were going to shift with my contract. So for the Lord to say I'll be here 2 to 3 years, I figured I'll be moving somewhere before the end of that third year. And that's what I told Sister Mary, and she said, cool, just let me know. And of course, that's not how the story went. I completely misunderstood what God said to me.